There are many things in life that involve more than meets the eye, sometimes literally. Land ownership is one topic that seems simple at first, but has more details involved than many people realize. Abigail Blackrick reports.
When many people think about owning land, it seems to be somewhat straightforward. You buy a parcel of land and can use it as you wish. However, land ownership is not always that easy, especially when it comes to the natural resources like oil and gas located beneath the surface.
Michigan has a law, and it's called the Dormant Mineral Act. Very few people in the state of Michigan are aware of the act, but it is a very important act in Michigan if you own the surface. Why is it such an important act? In Michigan, like Texas, like Oklahoma, and a number of other states, your oil and gas rights or mineral rights can be separated from the surface. When that happens and you own the surface, you might own no minerals or oil and gas rights. You might own half of the oil and gas rights or mineral rights, or some fraction of them.
As you might imagine, keeping track of exactly who owns which portion of mineral or surface rights can become a major headache, and that's exactly why the Dormant Mineral Act was put into place.
So the legislature said to promote oil and gas activity in the state of Michigan, we're going to pass this law that says if mineral rights are separated from the surface, if you're an owner of those mineral rights and you don't lease them or file a notice that you intend to keep those, every 20 years, those mineral rights revert to the surface.
David L. Porteous is an attorney with the McCurdy, Wotilla, and Porteous law firm. He says that the Dormant Mineral Act is particularly important for landowners who haven't owned the mineral rights previously, but are interested in doing so.
You can see why that becomes so important. It becomes important if you're the surface owner, because that may mean that oil and gas rights or mineral rights that you didn't own before would come to you because somebody that owned those didn't lease them every 20 years or didn't file a notice of intent to keep those.
Owners of surface land aren't the only ones who should be aware of the act, however. It's also important for people who currently hold mineral rights to understand the law in order to avoid losing those rights.
If you're an owner of mineral rights, but you don't own the surface, it's very important that you know about this law, because the law says we want to make sure that if you own mineral rights or oil and gas rights and you don't own the surface, that you do something with those to show that you intend to keep those mineral rights.
Luckily, it isn't particularly difficult for mineral holders to maintain those rights, but some basic planning is necessary.
And you can do that in a couple of ways. One is, if you lease your oil and gas rights, then that saves them, what I'll call saves them for 20 years. So in other words, if at least every 20 years you lease the oil and gas rights as a mineral owner, that means you keep those. Now it may be, as is many times the case, you may own the mineral rights or the oil and gas rights, but nobody's interested in leasing them. That doesn't mean that you lose them. It means that you can file a notice of intent to retain your minerals, and that notice is a form that you complete and fill out and file at the Register of Deeds where those mineral rights are located.
And understanding the legal aspects of the Dormant Mineral Act can help those right holders avoid costly problems in the future.
Now, if you own those minerals, you don't file a notice, and you don't lease them, in essence, you do nothing with those mineral rights, 20 years passes, those mineral rights automatically revert to the surface owner.
With My News 26, I'm Abigail Blackrick.
Now, mineral rights are a particularly important topic in our part of Michigan. The state has issued over 60,000 permits for oil and gas wells, and a very high number of them are in the northern part of the mitten. Of course, more from around the northern part of the mitten is just ahead. You're watching Michigan's only 24/7 local news channel.